Okay. Um, First off, let me just apologize for the last minute cancellation last week. It is completely crazy around here with annual getting prepping for annual enrollment, and so I appreciate everyone's patience during that. However, I did send over the PowerPoint I was going to share and kind of your plan of attack, which is basically your homework, if you will, to help you work through this whole process. Um, I think it's important to talk through kind of how this all came to play. So right during COVID, we were seeing an increase in employee deaths for a variety of reasons. And we're running into situations where people weren't updating their beneficiaries or they didn't have beneficiaries, or there's a situation where an employee had started with the city when he was very young, had his dad named as the beneficiary. His dad had since passed away. He never updated his beneficiary. And so it's most likely that he wasn't getting any of that money. And so I think this is just a very challenging, morbid process, if you will, just trying to get all your affairs in order for when the unexpected does happen. But it's so important, and just if you're the power of attorney or whatnot for your family, it's important that you know what your family's wishes are. So I'll use my a personal example is I lost my dad last February, and my sister and I were joint power of attorneys, and I didn't even know until probably a few months before he passed that he even wanted to be cremated. It was just something that we never discussed growing up. And so whenever that time came, unfortunately, um, I felt really good knowing that we were doing everything that he would have wanted. And during that time, we knew my dad didn't have um, much longer to live. We worked with my mom to just kind of get all his affairs in order. So when that time did come, it just made life so much easier. Um, and so this is a program just to try to help you get all those affairs in order in a nice package. And then after we complete the program or challenge or whatnot, and then you can register, which I'll send that out today with the follow up to these slides, but you can register for a lockbox. And these are nice lockboxes. They're probably 25, 30 pounds. They're fireproof, waterproof, just so you can maintain all your documents. Um, and it's a one stop shop. So whenever that time does come, or if you need to access something, you can keep all of that stuff in one location. And there is a lot of sensitive information in here, so you want to be sure that information is protected. Um, I know we only have 30 minutes, so just know that I'm here to support you throughout this entire process. So if you have any questions that maybe we don't get to today, or you have questions as you're working through this whole process, feel free to email me, call me. I'm always happy to help. So this week, and y'all don't need to see my face the whole time, so I'm going to take it off camera. Um, we're diving into passwords and codes, but I did want to briefly talk through last week on the emergency planning. So everyone should have received their packets. I will tell you, and I should have mentioned this last week, is we used to have the paper um, password journals, and we actually ran low on those. But honestly, from what the feedback I've heard from employees, a lot of people weren't using them. They were doing online password managers. However, I've ordered some more. So if your preference is to have a password journal where you're updating that information via pen and paper, just let me know, and I'm happy to interoffice that to you. So just FYI on that. Um, something I wanted to touch on last week, when we were able to meet, is that there's a lot of information here. there's sometimes going to be more, I don't even like to say homework, but plan of attacks is what I call them each week, where it may be somewhat overwhelming. It's a lot of information. And so just give yourself some grace and know that after we wrap up in a few weeks, if you don't have everything together, that's fine. I would just encourage you to set aside some time to keep working through this, and just remember why you're doing this, because I think when you do get overwhelmed, keep going back to that on why this is important and why you're doing this. So if you haven't had a chance to review the PowerPoint from last week, it was around emergency planning. So there was an family emergency plan document that was included as part of your packet. And so that is a great way to have all your emergency contacts if you're ever out of town and your HVAC goes out or you need a plumber or whatnot. And maybe someone's there watching your kids or whoever's watching the house. They know how to who to contact. That information too was, if you have a child, if you have kids and there's an emergency, um, do they know where to go? So if there was an emergency, if there was a fire and you need to get out of the house, where's the standard meeting place that you would meet, even if it was a tree, um, in the front yard. So just ensuring that during any emergencies that your family knows what to do, and reviewing that information um, every year is helpful. Julia, you have a question?
I don't. Sorry, I accidentally clicked that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Um, so that's the emergency plan document. And then there is step-by-step information on how to add your emergency information to your phone. This is super important, especially if you have kids or parents, helping them add this information to their phone, because if you're an emergency contact, and there is an emergency, I talk about how to add the emergency SOS on your phone. So in those situations, if whoever you've designated as an emergency contact, which you can name multiple people, um, when you do the emergency SOS, it automatically dials 911 for you, and it alerts your emergency contacts. And the beauty of this is that there's a GPS on there. So, if something happens to you and you need to go to the ER, it's notifying your emergency contact to say, Nana's currently being transported to Presby, Maine. And um, it can tell you where I am, or whoever who's ever in trouble, and if you're listed as the emergency contact, you will get updates, and it will tell you their location and all of that. So that's super helpful, especially if you have older parents or whatnot, especially for your kids. I would encourage you to work on that as well. So all that information is included in last week's PowerPoint. So if you hadn't had a chance to look at that, please go back and review that. All right. And though I'll leave a few minutes at the end to ask any questions. So just if you have any questions, just hold it till the end and I'll get to everyone then. So just a little bit around passwords and codes. So I think when we think a lot about passwords, we think about just, your email, if you do social media, Amazon accounts, but it's so much more than that. So thinking about the security questions you have, the online passwords, unlock codes, if you have PIN numbers, if you have storage units, what the combination is, the unlock codes. Things have become so digital. And so the beauty about the password managers is you can set it up to where sometimes I know for the city, you have to update your password every 90 days. So whenever I update my password, if you have a password manager, it will go in there and automatically update what your new password is. So you don't have to continuously go back in and update that. Or if you had a password journal, you wouldn't have to go back in there and update that every time. So that's really nice about password managers. How it helps, so your family can instantly access all your vital digital services without having to go through a legal process, which takes forever and it's a lengthy and cumbersome process. Um, so thinking about, if you have all your passwords and such listed, then someone can close out your accounts, notify your any subscriptions, or if you are the one that pays the Duke Energy bill, you want to be sure that's still getting paid. So you may need to transfer who's on that bill, so forth and so on. Sharing your phone password is probably one of the most crucial things that you can do, because there's so much information that's stored on on people's phones. Um, and so that person who that one person is who's going to be taking care, maybe it's the person who's going to be in charge of your digital assets whenever that time comes, letting them know what your phone password is, because sometimes people are having their password managers there, all your critical information. Sometimes I keep all my passwords and such locked up in my phone, and so it's very important when you're notating all your passwords that your phone password is front and center as well. Because thinking too about the two-step verification or two-factor authentication. So I know for my personal email, and then for some of my other accounts, I'll log in and then I have to open up my phone and open up the app for it to verify that I am who I say I am. And so that's another reason why someone having your phone password is so crucial. Security upside, so they would be able to gain access to your various accounts. The downside is if you lost your phone and did not have your phone readily available, then um, you wouldn't be able to log into anything until you had your phone back. So that's only the downfall of the two-factor verification or two-factor authentication, is that is much more secure. But then if you do lose your phone or whatnot, then you're up a creek, because then you're not going to be able to access that account. So here I put a little side mission for y'all. I actually tried this. I did not do it within the 10 minutes. So these, things have become so digital, but some of our most important and official documents are still printed on paper. And all these things that I have listed out here are things you're going to want to make copies of. So if you go back and reference the packet that I gave you, you'll see I included in all your packets 10 folders, and then you had 10 sheets of paper where it listed out helping you organize your folders, because you don't have to do it that way. I was just trying to make it a little bit easier for you. So you could attach each piece of paper to each folder, and then as you make copies of those documents that are listed on each paper, then you can check it off on the front. So then when someone is accessing your information or whatnot, it's organized and they know where your information is and how it's organized. So this is just a challenge for you. So set a timer for 10 minutes and see how many of these documents you can find within that 10-minute period. It took me a little bit longer. I wasn't even sure where my birth certificate was. It was in my files, but I had trouble finding it. So anyway, this is good for you to locate all this information and then make copies of that and put it in those folders. So, like I've said before, our lives have become so digitally focused. You'll see, and I think it's either next week or the week after. We'll go into more in depth about the assets and then city resources around that, talking about power of attorneys, wills, things like that. But you'll see in a lot of people's wills, they have someone listed as a digital POA because there's so many things are so digital now. And so password managers, they securely keep track of all your sensitive information. And all you have to do is remember that one master password to access all your accounts. So that's also something to remember as well. So whoever's going to be manning all your digital assets, you want to be sure they have information on how to access your password managers. I'm not going to read through the upside and downsides of each of these, but people sometimes prefer just to notate. I can't speak today. Notate their passwords, usernames, and passwords in an actual password journal, or people are doing the password managers because it will automatically update as you're changing your passwords and such. But the downside is if you forget that passcode to get into the password manager, then you've lost all that information because you don't remember what that is. Anthony, you have a question?
I do, and I put it in the chat as well. Do you have a list of recommended password managers?
Yes. So yeah, I have a few listed there in the next couple slides. So you can reference that. I'll send out a copy of the presentation each week. And so you can just check that out afterwards. But I did some research on these and I picked out the top, I think I have 3 in here. So you can check those out and see what works best for you.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So here, I'm not really going to go into each type of password manager in a lot of depth. I'll let you read through that. But a lot of people, if you're married or for your kids or whatnot, they have individual memberships and then they also have family memberships. So you can set it up to where maybe you have a family membership, but then maybe y'all have a shared, I'm going to kind of butcher how I explain this. There's a way within the password manager, if you have passwords that your other family members may need to know. So maybe it's something as simple as your Netflix username and password, or your Hulu or Verizon or whatnot. You can set it up to where you have your own individual stuff, but then you have a family membership where your family can access username and passwords that they may need to know. So password managers are very easy to set up and they'll help you work through that whole process. And they're not expensive, really. I mean, you're talking about, I think they range from $30 to $100 on average for password managers. So there's 1Password, that's one of them. There's also Dashlane, which is a big one. I've used that one before and really like that one. Then you have LastPass. I think those are the only 3 that I include on there. So I'll send this presentation to you afterwards and you can review. They're all fairly similar. They vary maybe just slightly. So I'll let you check through that if that's the direction that you want to go. So then also when you're thinking about password managers, not forgetting your offline time. So looking at your ATM, your banking codes, the last 4 digits of your social security number. So you'll see in the life planning organizer, that big red booklet that was included in your packet, you'll get a lot of that information on the About Me, about what my family should know on the first couple pages. So they'll be able to access that as well. And this is the life planning organizer, something you'd want to keep locked up in your lockbox. So think about lock combinations. So I know at my house I have the digital lock where you push in the code to unlock and unlock and lock the door. So thinking about that, if you have a home security system, or if your alarm system accidentally goes off, then the CPI or whoever you use is going to call and ask for a password. So being sure you include that. garage doors, offices, storage facilities. I just said this just now around, sometimes when I call, I think I did this for AT&T and I couldn't remember my password, but they said, okay, what's your favorite restaurant? And so thinking about those types of things, you want to include that as well. And then just doing a final sweep. I know as I did when I did my password manager back when I did this, there are a few things that I would just forget or that would come to. So just do a full sweep and after you kind of pull everything together and see if you're missing anything, including, don't forget your Wi-Fi password. There's a ton of different passwords and codes and stuff that we use that we probably don't even think about. So this week, each of you I gave you 2 monthly bill organizers, just to organize all your bills. I would recommend you organizing them from the first of the month to the end of the month. But I also included, all of these have they're editable documents. So I included the monthly bill organizer, in the editable form last week when I sent that information. So at the end of this program, each week you'll get a copy of the presentation, what your plan of attack is, any additional handouts or such that we discussed. But then at the end of this, I create a zip file for the Get Your Ducks in a Row toolkit. So then you can have access to everything. That's going to include all your editable documents, all the PowerPoint presentations, the recordings, all of that. So you'll have all that information in one location at the end of all this. Just know that. So if you didn't complete the emergency planning documents, and I believe I said 1 through 5 of your life planning organizer, then go ahead and finish that first. And then for this week, the plan of attack is completing the monthly bill organizer. So getting all your bills and such together, because if something ever happens, it's important for people to know what's coming out when, and maybe where they need to discontinue certain accounts and those types of things. Get all your passwords and usernames and passwords together. Of course, don't forget your offline time. And then for that side mission kind of plan of attack, get those documents together, make copies, and then try to organize them in your folders. And again, you do not have to use the way that I organize the various folders. It was just a way to help you get started. So feel free to do that how you like. I was just trying to make it easier for you. Questions? Like that was a lot of information. I was a little all over the place this morning.
I have a question. Hey, my name is Miguel. How are you? Thank you for the presentation. This zip file you sent, I mean, I can open it sometimes and sometimes I can't. Is it something, am I doing something wrong or what? I just opened it like 10 minutes ago, but then now I can't open it anymore.
For the information I sent last week?
Yeah, the editable documents, zip.
I wonder if it's because you're not connected. I wonder if you have to be connected to the network to do that, because anyone should be able to access that. And honestly, since it's in the zip file, you should be able to do it whether you're connected to the network or not. Let me resend it to you, Miguel, and see if you can, if that works. I'm making a note right now.
Okay.
And for example, I'll download the recordings for this, but I download it to YouTube. So that way people can access it and they don't have to be connected to the network. And so, yeah, I'll resend it to you.
Thank you.
And Miguel, I will say if that doesn't work, I know that I've had to call IT in the past to export zip files just because for some reason there was an IT issue with my computer not being willing to do it or something. So that may also be an option for you.
Perfect. Thanks for the advice. Yeah, I was able to open it 10 minutes ago, but now I cannot open it anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, technology is great when it works, isn't it?
Yes. But thank you guys. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we got a quiet group today. So I know we have annual enrollment coming up. So part of this, I did this intentionally, even though it's a crazy time of year, because I wanted to get this information to y'all before the end of annual enrollment, because we're going to talk through the MetLife benefit, and if you need to update your wills or power of attorneys, or maybe you don't have a will. So we're going to talk through the various benefits and city resources that are available to you to help get all your affairs in order. So we'll go through more the asset protection, life insurance, all of that for next week and the week after. So if you have any questions in the meantime, I promise I'm the only Nan man in the address book. So feel free to reach out, give me a call, or shoot me an email. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
man.
good one as well.
Take care.
Thank you.